to the Sawalha-Adderleys YouTube channel. If this is your first time, just straight off the bat, huge warning. This is a spoilers review stroke discussion of Adolescence. So if you are planning to watch it later, don't watch this and maybe come back and watch it later after you've watched it.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to be spoiling from the get-go. We were going to move through it sequentially, but it's so all-encompassing a show, all-encompassing in its emotions, all-encompassing in its storytelling, that we are going to spoil quite quickly. So if you haven't watched it, if you're only partially, through the series, if you're even at the end of just episode 3, pause, finish it up, and then come back at a later time. But yeah, this is a live talk through Adolescence. For anyone who doesn't know, Adolescence mini-series drama only just landed on Netflix from the same team that brought us Boiling Point, the film, and the series, which also starred and was produced by Stephen Graham. And it's the same team that essentially have brought that to, essentially, it's described as a crime drama, which in no way even gets close to what this show is.
Yeah, and so we were, right up until we just went live, we were saying, how do we do this? Because usually we've watched a series and we'll review it. We'll work through episode and talk through each episode. We still don't know how we're going to talk to you about this because we've only just finished 20 minutes ago, episode 4, in which we were both sobbing. And I mean sobbing. I went up to my daughter afterwards upstairs and said, are you okay? Because at one point I thought she's going to hear us, because I have never cried like that in a drama. So I said to Mark, God, it's really weird to go back to episode 1 and then work through it.
And then dispassionately move through it emotionally. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's a really sensible way to go about it, though. I mean, Nadia, it's that weird thing. We were both completely smacked out by it, completely shot down emotionally. I had to go in the garden and have a cry at the end of the garden and fiddle around in a shed.
Shelley, episode 4.
And Nadia had to go upstairs and put this thing on her head.
Yeah, and then I had to come down and have a peanut butter bagel, which has now made me feel sick.
So
I had to stuff food into my face to deal with the emotions. But we were just saying, just before we went live, I said to Mark, I can't wait to hear how it affected you guys. Because, for instance, one of our daughters and her boyfriend's upstairs, they're 17 and 18. And of course, it's going to impact on them so differently to an older person and then a parent, or a single, or single parents in a different way to 2 parents, or if you haven't had children. Every person this will affect in a different way.
Well, and also I think because it's about a family, this is about a horrendous eruption of violence within a family. An ordinary family, a family that is just ordinarily going about its family business, living its life, and then this horror story just tears into it, quite literally. I think because it's such a sort of ordinary setup, there are access points for teenagers, for adults, for parents into this show.
And Stephen Graham said that the thing that was so important was that the family was a totally ordinary family. There was no abuse, no addiction, no violence.
Yeah. Well, no, I just want to say on that, because I think one of the really strong elements of this whole series was, by the end of it, again, we've said spoilers, so we won't say it again, it is a family which hasn't got abuse threaded through it. It's an ordinary family. But what I think is so clever about it as a show is that all the way through it, I don't know if you were, I certainly was, kind of writing the narrative of what must have been happening in this household, of what Stephen Graham as a dad must have been, what potentially even the mum must have been, right down to when the crime is done, the boy is taken in, and the boy asks for his dad to be his responsible adult.
And the policeman says, are you sure? Because they've seen it so many times before. And then we hear that policeman actually say, we were months with the boy before we realised what was going on.
I just thought that was neat, because and what was so clever about that was the storyline. Yeah, exactly. The storyline and the storytelling didn't have to do anything extraordinary other than present to us those junction points where we all make quick judgments, and
judgments of ourselves as parents as well. But so as we're saying, Stephen was saying that it was so important to have an ordinary family, a normal family, and he said that he had, because he co-wrote the series, and he was saying that he saw a story about a young girl that was stabbed, and then within weeks that there was another story, and it really affected him. And he talked about how when we were kids, you know, if something a bit saucy came up on the telly, we'd go up to we'd be sent up to our room so we didn't see it. Wherever we send our kids now, they are open to the macro world, everything. And actually, our daughter's boyfriend was saying to me, but I don't understand, because I don't understand why he did it. And I said, but that's partly the point of the drama, is that our lives, our online lives and our real lives are so intertwined that what makes us who we are now. And as a parent, how do you untwine something to try and work out what's going on with your kid? And I think this did that so well. And the fact that it was, now lots of you might not know this because Dina didn't, it was only until we were talking about it this morning, that the series was shot, and I'll let Mark take over here, as one continuous shot, which put us so, you might not even know that's why, that you were even more in it. But Mark, you explain.
Well, I mean, each episode is one continuous take, and I mean that's nothing new. I mean that's something that they did with Boiling Point, which was the restaurant drama. The film, they did it with the film version. Then they used really long takes. Yeah, I mean,
it's quite new. It's still unusual.
It is unusual, but I mean, there is you know, in films they've done it in things like 1917. But as a device, I mean, more often than not, it's a device that, interestingly, is often used on things like soaps and things like that. They'll have a live episode where it's not one continuous take, but the action just runs for the half hour. And what that does is, especially with something like this, it takes you to the very heart of it. But it takes you can't leave the story. Now that presents so many storytelling problems and logistics, understandably. And what I thought,
pressure on the actors,
but pressure on the tech team.
Yeah,
Apparently, they would do a week of rehearsals for each episode just for the actors. Then they would do a week of rehearsals just for the tech crew around the actors, second week. And then for each episode, I think they'd shoot something like 10 individual takes, and then they would cherry pick. So they've done each of these shows 10 times. And when you've gone through the emotional exhaustion of just each of these episodes, that beggars belief. But that single camera. I mean, traditionally, the idea of a long take and the idea of a continuous take is it keeps you up against the action with a sort of sense of urgency.
Well, what I noticed is we couldn't look at our phones. We couldn't get up and go away. So it's a great device for keeping people stuck in.
But also it's a device that I think can be really used badly. And I think this is a huge tribute to the directors, the tech team, the actors on this. Sometimes I find that the continuous take, I was mentioning it this morning, almost everything gets signposted and everything lands on its beat and its target destination, and the lines are delivered.
It starts to feel so
It all starts to feel so contrived that you think, actually, as you said earlier, it's the tail wagging the dog rather than the dog wagging the tail. I personally think this is one of the first occasions, other than 1917, the film, where the one take, and that wasn't one take across the whole film, but where the efficacy or the effect of the one take not only wasn't dictating the storyline and when we got to moments in the story, but it was actually allowing for breath and air.
Because we would have scenes where they would just sit for a long time and have long scenes, many of which I just adored. But because it feels like we are working through a bit now, which is great. Which is good, I think, because it feels right now. But so that was the first thing, the technical side of it. You know, just think of this: if you fuck up as an actor or a technician, everyone goes back to the beginning.
Apparently, on one of their takes, they had all the lights went in the police station, and they had to take it back. Yeah.
So that young boy, I mean, his first ever job to be able to do that.
Owen Cooper.
Good God.
Big shout out to Owen Cooper. Quite astonishing.
So right from the off, when they police smashed into the house, wow, God, we're off. I thought, oh, this poor boy, he hasn't done it. I thought the scenes in the police station were just incredible. I loved the relationship between the two police officers, didn't you? The woman she underplayed it so beautifully, didn't she?
The detective.
A detective.
Yeah, alongside Ashley Walters. Ashley Walters was amazing too. I mean, hey, look. I think everyone in this is great. I mean, and it's one of those shows where if there is a bit of a dud performance, it's going to stand out a mile, and it really didn't. I like the way the 4 episodes, and obviously because they're a continuous take. The first episode was very much the kind of arrest and the processing and the charge and going into, with the lawyers and being, interrogated by the police. The second was very much going to the school. So you got a real sense of the pressures in school. The third
And
was
I
the
thought that was-
psychoanalyst. And the fourth was the family in the aftermath, which is very neat.
I thought the school one was, well, they were all really important episodes, but it was such an important episode because it showed so brilliantly how teachers haven't got a bloody clue what's going on. We as parents think we're fairly clued up, but suddenly when that great scene between the detective and his son, when his son says, "Dad, I just couldn't watch you making a fool of yourself anymore,"
God, that was so good.
because it's not just Andrew Tate, basically, the emojis, the incel. And Stephen Graham and the other writers and directors didn't want this to be about Andrew Tate and incel.
So
Listen
they
to
do
this.
name check him, don't they?
Listen to this. No, but the boy says it's not just that. Listen to why they don't. Because there is so much worse out there. And maybe parents now are settling a little bit too much into one area. And again, we've missed the beat. It's gone way past that. And yeah, like you say, like he said, you don't know what they're taking in. It's so petrifying. That's why it was so brilliant that it was a good and decent family. I have this argument all the time with people. They go, "Oh, but what was the parents like?" I say, no. You can't say it's this kind of a parent or this class or this. Everybody is vulnerable to it because everybody who's on the internet. When I was having a conversation with our daughter, you know what she just said to me? "Well, that's why I wouldn't let my child have a phone."
Wow.
And I said,
Wow.
"Yeah, but you know what you're told then when you don't let your child have a phone? You're told your child is illiterate in the world, like literally."
But also kids get bullied for not having phones.
And I said, and then we're told that you can't have the search. And you know what she said? She went like that. She went, "Yeah, that is true." I said, "Now, maybe I should take your phone away because you've told me so many times you want to not be on TikTok. You want to not, we're all caught in this bloody trap."
I thought what was really
so
clever about this was it does operate as a crime drama. Certainly for the first episode, you are asking,
Yes.
did he?
Who
Did he
did it?
not? Could
Yeah.
he? Did he? And quite quickly, I thought right at the beginning, that incredibly traumatic relationship and dynamic between a parent and their child. The parent, Stephen Graham, principally because he's made the sort of responsible adult that sits with him in the interrogation, wanting to believe that this isn't true, earnestly asking his son, when he said to him at that one point where he said, "I'm going to ask you once, son, did you do it? Did you do it?" And when his son says he didn't do it, that thing that we do as parents, it
believe
is
him.
an
I would.
absolute unconditional belief.
If I was said to my child, "Listen,
Absolutely.
whatever you've done," I say this to our
Absolutely.
children all the time, "Whatever you've done, I'll always love you and I'll always support you, but just never feel you have to deal with something on your own." So we do all do that. Bluebell just said there, it should be shown in all schools. I was just saying that to Mark Bluebell just before. I said, if I was the government, I would be buying that off Netflix and making it a tool in schools. And I would, if I was headmistress, I would be calling in parents and children for screenings, offering a screening and then discussion afterwards, because we've had lots of good discussions with all the young people that are in the house at the weekend. And I just think that's invaluable. Anything that opens a conversation with intergenerationally.
I mean, and I thought what was really spectacularly strong about this was, as you say, Tralala, they delivered the kind of information we needed to know by the end of the first episode. We'd seen the CCTV footage. It quite quickly jettisoned the idea of this wasn't going to be a show that the next 3 episodes weren't about did he, didn't he, did he? Though there was always that querulous moment where are you going to side so wholeheartedly with Stephen Graham and the family and believe that he didn't? I just thought what was quite neat about this was, as you say, sort of there's the spectre of incel and potato head. We don't like to talk about him. And obviously there's misogyny and there's attitudes to women that's threaded deeply within this. But it wasn't like, it wasn't sort of labouring the point. It wasn't sledgehammered in.
No, it's like real life.
It was threaded.
Seeping in.
Yeah, and I thought that the scenes in the school really gave you, I've never been in them. I loved the line from Ashley Walter who said something, Walter's character said something like, or was it his female DI? She said something like, it smells like, it's
Cabbage,
it smells like cabbage.
masturbation.
And he said it's like a waiting room. It's like a waiting pen for life.
Holding pen.
A holding pen for life. What an analogy. What a way to
Well, I've
describe
always thought
school.
that bloody school.
I know, but when you walk around a school like that, and it's quite like the school I went to, it was just like the noise, the nonsense going on in the corridors. It was a very believable, and right down to when he walked into classrooms, total disrespect from kids in classrooms, even of police officers.
Disgusting.
Even of police officers. The disrespect from youngsters across this, right down to the end episode where they scroll nonce on his van. I thought it was really powerful about the real disrespect for adults and the dysfunctionality amongst children, generally towards adults, in whether they be teachers, whether they be police officers, and what have you.
Somebody here, quite a few people saying should be put in schools. It should be, lots of comments on that.
What did we make of Stephen Graham? What did you? The series was very much looking at what makes a monster. I mean, it is that classic question, isn't it? What makes the monster? And I thought it was it was such a heartbreaking portrait of a dad.
As Claire said, the strip search broke our hearts. All of us did.
It was a very heartbreaking portrait of the heart of. I mean, so sorry. Go on. What were you saying?
No. She did in that heartbreak. He broke our hearts so many times, didn't he? In that strip search scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, with his jaw tightening and we felt every part of that strip search with a camera just close on his face.
But even in that scene, what I thought was so clever,
God.
and that's why, again, casting Stephen Graham was so good, you couldn't work out whether he was just furious and that his fury was part of the problem. All the way through this, I was trying to connect Stephen Graham's rage, fury, or crossness to the consequence of his son having done what he'd done. And it was only in that final episode where suddenly I sort of felt the relief of realising you can have rage and not actually be responsible for a child killing someone.
I didn't. I got rid of that fairly quickly. I
didn't.
thought, no, he's just a good dad.
I thought he was going to blow in a way in the final
thing.
episode. I thought he was just going to blow in a way that was going to harm his case and all that kind
Because
of
for me, when he was like twitching with, is it rage or grief? I was just thinking, I'd be staying there raging. If somebody was saying to my boy, lift up your penis, do this, do that, when he's just told me that he hasn't done it, because that's what we'd be like, wouldn't it? Be like, I just thought, this is a man who can really control his temper. So this is a strong man. I thought, for me, right from the beginning, I could see a man that has probably been humble a lot in his life.
humbled.
Yeah. So no, I didn't have that problem. I mean, I did at the beginning because
I think I don't think I'm articulating it very well. I don't think I literally had that, but I just thought what's interesting is as a society, if we see a child or if we hear that someone's done something awful, we all necessarily scurry off for what were the causes, what was the nurture, what was the situation at home, what was it like in the house, were there and that moment in the discussion between him and the wife at the end where she references his rage or his anger at some point in their relationship, and there's the suggestion that should we have let him see it, what could we have done differently to not let him see any upset? And of course all families go through upset,
and that's why episode 4 broke us, because I defy any parent to not have cried through the episode 4, because there is not a good parent in the world that doesn't say, where could I have done better, could I have done better? The absolute line of the whole series for me, and it's difficult because it's a fantastically written series, was when the mum said, I think it's okay for us to say we could have done better. And I said this to our daughter upstairs. I said that was my favourite line. She went, oh, why? I said, because we all think that as parents. That's why we resolve it. It's because, and she said, oh, you're a good parent. I went, yeah, but I could do better. Because you've told me a number of times that you hate TikTok and you can't not have TikTok. So in a way, you've told me that you've got a bit of a, like so many of us, how many of your kids are going to say to you, oh God, TikTok drives me mad, or oh God, Instagram or social media, and yet we go, oh no, I know, well, you shouldn't go on it so much, and that's all we do, right? So that could resonate with anyone. Like we can question, oh, should we have been firmer when they were, should we have had more boundaries when they didn't want to do this? When he said he gave up on that, And do you remember he was good on that? And he gave up on that. I don't know a single parent that doesn't say, well, they tried tap, they tried da-da-da, took them horse riding, did this, did that, they didn't want to do it.
But the thing is, what's so
crazy.
clever about it as a story, though, is it erupts into a family. It could be any family. And what does any family do when something like this happens? When someone dies in a family, one looks back and you think, you see everything through a different set of eyes, don't you? You see every other possibility. You see all the things you didn't put in place. You see all the choices you could have made. Hindsight Productions kicks in a big way. One thing I really liked about the show, which I thought was poetically beautiful, was that by the end of it, you were also offered a family that were responsible for that beautiful daughter too.
Yes.
You know, and so
he was a lovely
out of the
son.
same, you know, created out of the same. Like they say, out of the same gene pool, from the same source, from the same
Because he was also a lovely son. He was
Exactly.
also a boy that drew his dad for his birthday. He was also, you know, somebody that idolised his dad, but he was also somebody that murdered a girl.
Yeah.
And he murdered a girl for a million different layered reasons of things that were coming into his brain at a malleable point. When people are vulnerable, you know, the frontal lobe hasn't fully developed till they're 25, and yet some people have iPhones from 5 years old. You have the whole world open to you. So
Can I ask a question?
doesn't take
of
away
everyone?
that you also can be a sweet person as well.
I just want to ask a question of everyone. Everyone. Did everyone, once he'd essentially established that he had done this or felt that he had done it, it was pretty obvious. Did you feel sorry for the boy? Did you feel what? I mean, because the third episode. So you had the origin story. You had the school. The show that I think I possibly had the most trouble with was episode 3.
Oh, that's Rachel. Quite a few people are saying they loved it the most.
Oh, right. Love the third episode. Now, it wasn't... I love the intimacy. The boy, Owen Cooper, the actor, absolutely sensational. Erin Doherty, who's also in 1,000 Blows, she's also sensational. I think the problem I had with that scene... Not problem, but the problem I had with that whole episode was I found myself trying to work out what Erin Doherty's backstory was, why her reactions were what her reactions were to what was being said. I wasn't all the time
In it.
totally convinced by some of the responses I felt she was making, or some of the choices she made as a psychotherapist to suddenly throw information at him. I loved the way in which he spun and he shot from vulnerable, innocent, put upon child to suddenly you're scared of a 13-year-old.
Well, it was very clever, wasn't it? Because in a way, I had points where I thought, would a 13-year-old say this? And then I thought, well, that's what we're supposed to be looking at,
Yes.
because he's not just a 13-year-old. He's a 13-year-old that's been in his bedroom on his computer every night till midnight, gathering information from grown-ass men with really serious fucked up issues. So when you see him, and I know some people thought, oh, is he schizophrenic or is he bipolar? I don't think he was. I think what we were showing was the influence that was in his head. Oh, what? You think you're da-da-da? It's all those videos they see. I mean, have you ever seen any of these misogynist videos? They are petrifying.
And also by the end of that episode, what made me think, no, this is actually spot on, was actually a 13-year-old is bloody frightening. An angry 13-year-old today, and
That's like their brainwash.
Absolutely, and also let's not beat around the bush. If you also know that he's actually capable of just savagely stabbing repeatedly someone, it was scary. I thought episode 3 did a really good job of threading into him and threading into us the idea that a lot of the consequences of his actions were because he too was bullied. I liked, and I thought it was very brave to go for that discussion about how not nice the girl was that he'd killed, or how the girl had treated him.
Because she was also a victim of toxic
Precisely.
masculinity and the misogynistic social media influencers.
Yes.
Because the
From
girls
the other end.
were using... So she has a photo spread round of her boobs. So then she turns on them using incel and misogynistic...
Emojis and
all
everything.
that stuff came back at them.
Yeah, through
came
her.
back at those boys. And so you're left going, oh God, was it because she bullied him? Oh no, it was because he did it. No, what this is fucked up kids. Fucked up kids with not enough. These online does not have enough restrictions. It's as simple as that. And it's as easy as that to do something about. All the campaigning in the world has made no bloody difference.
I thought what was really clever as well was the parallel situation that Stephen Graham is going through in the final episode. He has nonce put on the side of his van. He's being emasculated. His masculinity is being challenged as a dad, as a father, as a protector, as a worksman, as the father of a potential murderer. You know, he's under the gamut. And in a weird way, there was a huge parallel between how his son had been treated, or how we'd found out his son had been treated and bullied by all of his peer group, and what was happening to Stephen Graham. And it was interesting to see that Stephen Graham, in a sense, took that anger to a certain point. You know, we've talked a lot before about recovery and being an addict. Anger is an emotion. It's about what you do with that emotion. It's how you manage the anger. And I thought it was an incredibly powerful scene where he threw the bike at the two boys that had daubed it.
Because he lost it.
He'd lost it, but losing it doesn't make you a murderer. You know,
no,
losing
exactly. And yet we were like, oh my God, they videoed him throwing the paint on the van. That was, Reese, so layered, even in episode 1, when the other schoolgirl punches the other boy mocks that he got hit by a girl once again, reiterating toxic masculinity and the fear of emasculation. Exactly. And my God, that scene when the girl jumps on him, the violence. She was a fantastic actress.
Brilliant actress.
She was so good, and it shocked us because actually the only violence we witnessed was from a girl to a boy.
And it reminded me that hell hath no fury like a girl fight at school. It's terrible. I thought the other boy that Ashley Walters was interviewing in that classroom.
Kiki said that was her favourite actor.
That boy was quite phenomenal.
She said he was
tickling around, again, wanting to know his status, what Ashley Walters' status was at school. Were you kind of lucky with the girls and all this kind of stuff? I thought that was absolutely sensational. And also, I have to say, Ashley Walters' relationship with his son, I got within this show, there's also the warmest of moments, that moment where he takes his son for something to eat. Yeah. And I was just sat there agog at how this one take handheld job suddenly turned into a fucking drone shot, travelled some distance and then landed again next to Stephen Graham.
So let's have a few more comments on what people have been left feeling about it.
Ellery Jones, I'm bloody angry with TikTok and Facebook. I complain about stuff that's shown if it's not appropriate, but they don't do anything. It just pisses me off.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling that.
Claire's Creative Corner, the way he switched from being an innocent boy to being angry and influenced was really well done, and it did make me feel uncomfortable to watch. Yeah. Shelley Silver, I felt sorry for everyone, but mainly the parents, as Jamie is in a detention centre away, but the parents have to deal with the outside. That is worse, as we can't control how people act. Can I just say, there was a particular sequence where the camera had got in behind them, and it was the moment where the son phones them to wish happy birthday.
Oh my, we were sobbing.
And when he shifts his decision and his verdict, you know, that he's going to plead guilty, the silence, what was so clever about this show was not rushing because it was a one-take shot towards the next bit of storytelling. The silence, the moments in that car. And oddly, the camera position so many times, even when the boy was arrested at the beginning, I said to you, didn't I? I said, what I love about the boy in the car is he's looking out away from the camera. Very clever to make choices where you frustrate the viewer. Sometimes being a viewer isn't about having everything just given to you. Sometimes it's about being prevented from being able to easily see something you really want to see, because that recreates what it's like in real life. And I thought that was a brilliant decision to sit the camera behind them. But really, what you could argue was one of the most crucial moments of the film. I love
things like that. And then when the mum came in, she just cried into the jacket and then put those moments. Okay, some more of how people are feeling.
Let me just scroll down.
Somebody there saying they feel really sad and scared for their children.
Yeah, thank you, Anne-Marie Shellard. I have to say, although Stephen Graham is a great actor, his wife was brilliant too.
Oh my
she really
God,
was.
her performance
I think her name
was extraordinary.
Christine Tremarco. She was phenomenal. I absolutely
loved her. I'm going to seek her out. If you haven't seen The Virtues with Stephen Marchant in, watch it.
Me too. I'm with you. Both feeling the emotion, but also thinking about the battery swaps they'd have had to have done en route. True. I wished episode 1 focused more on the family members instead of the kids, says Jamil.
Oh, but we get that all on episode 4.
But hang on, let's just spare a moment for what about Mark Stanley as the lawyer? I thought the lawyer was sensational. I mean, these roles, these parts, and apparently, you know, lots of the extras were all dressed as police and as teachers so that they could visually cue the cameramen whilst they're actually walking around. So if they opened a door as a character going through a door, it was a cue for the camera to move. I thought Mark Stanley was
Emmys
amazing.
for all of them in the next season.
I don't think there are enough Emmy categories for everyone that deserves an award, is there?
Yeah, Jackie, watch it. It's fantastic, The Virtues. It will break you, though. It is so gut-wrenchingly sad.
Yeah.
You think you were sad. I didn't cry as much as I cried in this, I have to say. So just some more how people are
Bluebell,
feeling.
it makes me so scared for this generation and future generations. I hate it. Paula Brooks, yeah, I feel like we've sleptwalked through a whole generation and let them down. I think
Because
you
it
hit the nail on
moves
the head.
so fast.
I
It's
hope-
not really our fault, but it moves so fast. And we feel powerless, don't we? It's like, because it is true. I'd love to say to my kids, hand over your phones. But then they're not going anywhere. There's no social life.
Yeah, Paula Brooks goes on to say, I hope this is a pivotal moment to bring it home, how ordinary kids are being traumatised by social media.
Yes. And
you're right.
maybe people won't immediately say, well, what were the parents like?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Maybe
the
we'll
it's
say
the
more what
lottery.
they've been
It's the
watching.
lottery, and I thought that's what's so good about the fact that there were no issues or obvious issues within the family. You know, even that moment where Stephen Graham says he tried to do better than what he'd been given by his
And
dad.
he did.
How many of us can actually
We all
say that
say
we've
that.
all thought, God, I just want to do something that's better for my kids? And as Rachel Kelleher says, I think it's the juxtaposition of the horrific act and how he was flying off the handle versus the child she sees in front of her and how young he seemed.
The quiet strength of the mother, the wife. Oh my God, trying to keep everything nice. That incredible. Excuse me. We need a moment for the scene in the van when he's trying to save the day. The Chinese will go to the cinema. We'll do all of that.
Oh,
They've
what, Stephen
sorted
Graham as a
themselves
family,
out.
as a
And
family.
the daughter was brilliant, and the mother
was
was
so good.
brilliant, and the singing and aha, and her talking about when they fell in love and how they kissed and how he held their hand. So we got that old-fashioned romance that when we talk about in front of our kids these days, kids go,
Yeah.
what?
I mean, that
Because you've
scene
usually,
was sensational.
you know, so many kids now have usually sent a nude before they've even bloody met somebody.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and so when the mum says, oh, we did know how to hold a hand, you know, you just think every single thing was ticked here for a good family home. His dad's shown his mum respect. They love each other. They have a healthy sex life. Everything was there.
But does anyone else get that with Stephen Graham? For me, he's like the softest looking pit bull terrier.
Yeah.
He can look fucking scary, don't get me wrong, but when he's vulnerable, I understand that I think it's the same production team. I don't think you saw Help. Do you remember the drama during COVID?
Yeah.
Did you see it with him and Jodie Comer?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the last time I think I cried in the same way, where he had Alzheimer's, he had young onset Alzheimer's.
Oh, yeah, no, I remember it was on.
Yeah, I think you were away.
I was in 2 week of my mouth.
Yeah, it had a similar, there was a similar tendency. The director and Stephen Graham and Stephen Graham's processing of masculinity is, I think, always fascinating to watch in anything, whether it be the 1,000 Blows or whatever. He's one of those actors who processes masculinity, toxic and not, in really interesting ways and makes really odd, interesting choices on camera. And I just thought his breakdown and his build-up and his attempts to be strong, like we were really laughing at the business that was going on as he was trying to wash the car and spilling the water. Can't find the sponge, suddenly finds
Can't
the
find
sponge.
it. Well, it's there, right in the cupboard.
And why is it all men when they find what they can't find? They never say
So
they
don't
found
say
it.
And then you're all halfway down the fucking stairs to find
It's just
it.
those details. Some of the
So
relationships
lovely.
were so well worked out.
So natural, true, not acting, inhabiting, being. None of us were thinking, oh, you're acting this, were we?
Astonishing.
It was just astonishing in every way, and it's
I don't think
such
I've
an
cried like
important
that,
piece of drama. Important, and I always find it really wanky when people say,
Yeah.
oh, it's important. But do you think it's important?
Well, it's important,
because
yeah.
it's shifting along. Every program will be talking about it, having discussions next week about it, and probably not really arriving anywhere with the discussion, but at least they'll be discussing.
And I think it also, without being obvious, allowed us to step towards the idea that even the monstrosity of the actions of young boys caught in this maelstrom of information, they too are victims. But it doesn't say, it wasn't interested in saying they're such victims that we must ignore the fact that women are actually on the receiving end of this violence. I thought by the end of this series, I was looking at a generation of victims. This generation is victim to all sorts of poisonous thinking and propaganda and ideas.
and the generation before, because
Yeah.
the parents Oh, and the grandparents, nobody knows what the hell's going on. We don't know anymore how to protect our children.
No.
How do we protect our children from everything? Because that's what a child's got when they've got a phone. But you know what's really, really important, guys, because I've seen a couple of here going up saying, oh, it makes me want to look at my kid's phone. It makes me want to... The thing is, you will get no peace from that. I think the best thing you can do
They thought he
is
was safe in his bedroom.
communicate without judgment. Make them truly feel that whatever they're looking at or, not, oh, wow, everything that Andrew Tate says is bloody... No, it's just, God, it's so interesting.
Got a box clever.
What he says, how do you feel? Like it's a fait accompli that they've heard about him.
Because
it's just like we know that. But what this drama wants to tell us as well, don't focus on just that one person because there's much worse.
And I think Nadia makes a really good point. So we've talked a lot when we used to do a parenting podcast. Don't just be this kind of line of rule making which says if you do that you're in trouble.
You will never know
because it will get driven
know
underground
anything.
and you won't get to know anything. What you really want is you want your kid mentioning the fact that they're watching something by Potato Head so that you can engage with them on it and by stealth intercept and avoid.
Because if you just go, oh, right, that's it, you're never watching it again, but everyone else is watching it, do you really think they're just not going to watch it? The thing that every child wants more than anything else in the world is to fit in and to have friends and to be in the group, not outside of the group. So you have to navigate your way around that. So...
There are worse than the tater heads, says Michu. No, we can believe it.
I asked, we had a few teens around here this weekend, and I was asking a few of them, well, when I say potato head, you know who we're talking about, what do you think? And they're like 18, 19, I would laugh. Oh, it's more year 8s that would be still, it's year 8s that would be listening to them.
It's getting younger and younger and younger.
I don't know what year 8 is.
13. I thought this was a very the portrait in school, having filmed in schools. It was quite something. The disregard and those teachers trying to rein in
the woman that played the teacher, Jo Hartley,
the headmistress
was no, she was just a teacher.
Oh, was she?
Was
I thought
fantastic.
Wow, yeah, she was so good.
She was so good, Shelley Silver. What upset me was how many the kids in the school scene were just so blasé about the death.
Yes.
I know these kids are desensitized.
Yeah, you're
how many
absolutely right.
times will you hear kids these days go, oh yeah, so and so got stabbed. Oh yeah, so and so. Oh yeah, no, I know somebody that OD'd. And it's like we always say, we didn't know a single person
that
had died or had anything happen to them when we were growing up.
And those two kids at the front of that class who were just giggling about it, weren't they? They were just giggling about it.
They're desensitised because of what they bloody see.
Shocking. Was it, just wanted to read this, My Angel Alfie. I'm finding the world hard to navigate as an adult, let alone a child.
Exactly. When you think about how many times we discuss on Coffee Moments, things like dating apps and all of that, and these are all adults talk. Imagine that for a child who hasn't formed their own sense of self yet, or their own confidence, their character, their brain hasn't formed. They are vulnerable. It's literally not their fault.
Reese, I love this comment. I loved how the show illustrated the pressures of fatherhood and how as father providing and trying to protect is both a privilege and a burden.
It's like I said to Maddie, actually, I answered it on her Instagram. She sent us she did a lovely post of us on Instagram, didn't she? And underneath it, I said, you know what? We adore you too. So we've just finished watching Adolescence, and the thing about Adolescence for me is that it showed the absolute agony of loving your child. The agony. Yeah, there's the sweetness of loving your child, but do not think for a minute that it's not agonising as well.
Oh yeah, in very, very many different ways.
And the introspection one goes through all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Have I done the wrong thing? Was that my fault? Because you always feel like it's your fault. Like when at the end, when he goes, I didn't do enough.
Yeah. I sometimes
when he
wish...
walked into the bedroom, we both went, no! We thought we can't have him going into the bedroom.
I was snotting everywhere. It was just awful.
No, we know how we're going to be torn apart. We're going to have our hearts taken out and thrown on the floor, and that's brilliant drama that makes you feel something, think something.
So powerfully.
Don't get us wrong, we love Beverly Hills and we love Married at First Sight. We love all those things, but those are still watching people, aren't they? But my God, when a drama gets you like that, and we know everyone's talking about it, and for weeks now people will be talking
Claire
about
says, just finally, it really makes me worry when my child is in his first year at secondary school and being open to his big wide world, as like you say, when they want to fit in. Just the best you can do is just try and keep lines of communication open in a way that isn't preachy, judgy, or extreme in terms of shock. Because as soon as a kid sees a parent kind of come down hard on something, it more than likely it's going to be driven underground and they're not going to come back to you. It can happen in partnerships. You know, if I've had a strong reaction to, I don't know, something, Nadja will be like, well, they're not going to talk to you about that because the last time they did, you kind of went like shit off a shovel about it and you were upset. So really, it's easy to say, but you just need to have some mindfulness over what your first reaction is to difficult news, challenging news, or something you've discovered
also,
about your kid.
If you've got a partner that is abusive to you, or disrespecting you, or bossy to you, all those things, watch that, because your child will be seeing that as well. So, because you can get into habits with each other. It's not always an abusive relation. You can just get into habits where you're like, oh, you know. And so, as parents, you've got to watch. Oh, am I really talking as respectfully as I would like my child to talk to their girlfriend or their boyfriend?
Just a final line, technically, on the directing chops of the directors. Beautiful and very restrained use of music at all the right moments. There was a moment when Stephen Graham was filling the van and the music swelled through. You know, there are many moments in a one continuous take show where you could argue there's a bit of, not dead time, but there's just getting from A to B and doing stuff that needs to be covered. And I thought the show did a really good job of just punching through music at the right moments. And the piece at the end.
Oh, it's Bailey, one of our American
Just binged the whole series yesterday. A wake-up call for parents and anyone who works with children. We have the same problems here in the US, complicated even more. But yes, gun culture.
We're like, oh my God. And with guns, it's like, how do you bear it? How do you, because you're also sending your kids to school knowing that can happen. It's just, can we have a group hug for all parents?
For all parents.
Well, and not just parents, actually. Like somebody put very perfectly there, we're all caught up in the horror of it, aren't we? You know, whether you're dating, whether you're, you know, being bullied online by trolls or whatever, we're all victims of it in a different way. And this was a very, very important, powerful
piece of filmmaking.
And we thank you, filmmakers.
Yes.
You never know, Stephen might watch this.
Stephen Graham.
We love you.
You're the dog's bollocks.
You
look a bit like a dog's bollocks sometimes, but in a nice way.
You take our heart out of our body and you bloody squeeze it and pulverise it.
It really does. Thanks, guys. Keep your comments coming in and subscribe if you haven't.